Hello and welcome to another episode of Magicians Only, and this is a video episode. In case you weren't watching this on video and you don't know, all the video episodes always show up on YouTube. Magicians Only is brought to you by Magic on the Go, the greatest online magic school in the world. It's all in your pocket, it's all on your phone, on your tablet. You can learn magic wherever you are. You're never without me. I'm there with you all the time, teaching you all the best magic. I use it as a reminder quite often of the stuff that I need to do. I'm always uploading new stuff to Magic on the Go. For example, recently we uploaded the incredible paper bag card stab. Now, this is a very well-known trick. It goes back to Milbourne Christopher from the 1940s and 50s, maybe even earlier, Peter Warlock as well. But it's a trick where a deck of cards is shuffled. Card is chosen, shuffled back into the deck. The deck of cards is dropped inside a paper bag. You take a knife, you stab it through the paper bag, and when you rip it up, you rip it out of the bag, there's one playing card that's on the end of the knife, and that's the signed or chosen card. Now, there's a number of different ways of doing it. Robert Harbin had a way of doing it with two cards. There's versions where the deck is loose. There's versions where the deck is in a card box. There's also versions that I have hunted down specifically for this playlist. I think there's over 12, I remember 12 or 13 different videos discussing all of these different methods, including some original stuff of mine, how to use the trick as a deck switch. There's even a way of producing a full glass of beer from the empty paper bag at the end. Not the Bill Abbott thing, which is great, by the way, stabbed and shot. You can do that one. But this one uses a large glass of beer from the empty paper bag, and it's an ungimmicked glass. And you can do that surrounded. So that's all part of the paper bag card stab, available exclusively at Magic on the Go at magiconthego.com. Right, let's get to today's episode. In Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, there is a theater dedicated to the performance of magic. It's called Liberty Magic, and it is one of my favorite places. I was honored to work there twice doing my show, my one-man show, Life and Other Deceptions. Now, that's a narrative magic show. It's a real mix of drama and comedy and storytelling and a lot of magic, over 40 different pieces of magic packed into 90 minutes. Working there, I met the general manager. Her name is Zoe Ruth, and she comes from the world of theater. She had very little to do with magicians in her entire life until she started working at this place, poor girl. And she had so many amazing things to say. And I kept saying, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Oh my God, that's great. On things that she'd learned from how to work with magicians, or the great things that magicians do when they're practicing and rehearsing, or the mistakes that they make, or how they can make their shows better, how they could even build their own show, and even how to get booked at Liberty Magic. That I asked her if she wouldn't mind being interviewed by me, first of all, for Magic on the Go. And she said yes. So this interview has been on Magic on the Go for the last year or so. And now I'm going to let you guys, my wonderful followers on this wonderful podcast, Magicians Only, get a glimpse, get a taste of the brilliant things that Zoe said. Okay, so this is a two-parter. Part one, we get into the history of Liberty Magic, of Zoe, and we start talking about what it is to put a show together. Part two, we get into the nitty-gritty of what makes a show great. It is an excellent interview, and Zoe has so many, many good things to say that I'm very proud to bring this to you on Magicians Only. So don't go away, and don't forget, if you could do me a huge favor, could you just, maybe even before you listen to the rest of this, could you like this episode, the show? Could you like the show? And then if you wouldn't mind, would you mind subscribing? Yeah, and give me 5 stars. And then, maybe just post about how much you love this podcast. Thank you. Much appreciated. Let's move this up through the rankings. I want more and more people to get a glimpse of Magicians Only. All right. So thank you so much for being here. Here is part one of how to do a one-person show. Buddy, Steve Valentine here. I am at Liberty Magic, and I want to give you an idea of what we're talking about right when I'm talking about this venue. So we're going to split the camera around, and I'm going to take you on a quick tour, and we'll take you on a tour of the venue so you can see how beautiful it is. We're out here on Liberty Liberty Avenue in Pittsburgh. And let's... In the window, there is, of the venue, there is actually a water torture cell that was donated by Dennis Watkins. I've done that on house, and I'll never do that again. But anyway, there's a lovely entrance, and you'll see the decor here. Obviously, we don't have the lights on yet because we're not open for business yet, but it's really lovely. We have a huge card collection right here, and then here's a little bit of close-up magic happens while people are waiting to be seated. And you can see how cool these kind of cabinets of curiosities are. It really creates an atmosphere as people enter the venue. Here is where you would sign in, and as a ticket, you get a special playing card. They also have their own Liberty Magic decks of cards, FYI. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to take you into the crassness of my camera work, but I'm going to take you into the theater right now, and I'm going to show you the setup that I have for my show very briefly, and how I've kind of fitted it into this venue in order to fit it in, because the stage is interesting, okay? So anyway, let's go back here. So as people come through here, there's an ante-room, which you can see right here. You pass Zoltar. Over there. No, thanks. I want to be big. I want to be big. All right, so here we come through here, and there's a little ante-room right here, which is lovely. And then people would enter into the showroom theater. Now, this is a long room, as you can see. The stage is ground level. The seating is raked. There's about 66 people altogether. Is a full house right here, 66. And this has a full-on lighting sound rig right here. So we're not dealing with lights just above the head. We actually have a proper lighting soundboard, so we can create lighting effects for the show. Hopefully we're going to video some of the shows next week, so I'll actually get to show you how some of the stuff works with lighting, okay? Right, so here we go. So we're here, so the audience comes in here. This isn't here. This is actually part of my setup. That is backstage here. There's a little wings area. Here's another part of the setup here. I also have a bunch of jackets. So the show goes 90 minutes. Magic is furniture and pocket space. So you can't fit everything into one coat. So I came up with an excuse to run off stage and change jackets. And that's why off stage, I'll have all these different jackets. But each jacket is set up with a different section of magic, a different kind of series of props. Some kind of connect between two jackets. One trick I'll get out of one jacket, but I'll also use it for something in another jacket. So anyway, so here we are. Down here are my extras for reset, repair, very, very important. You never know what's going to break and when. So I've got 3 jackets and a waistcoat in the show. Then there's the props here. This is the main bag, shall we say, for the show. And even though it doesn't look like much, man, it was 2 suitcases worth. I've got the table, very important to have a wide tabletop. Over here, we have a bowling ball from briefcase, which I also have a ton of other stuff in. So that's ready to go. This is a new finish for the chocolate box that maybe we'll talk about some point in the future. But essentially, the box transforms into a bowl of fruit and a bouquet of flowers after you produce chocolates from it. It's really cool. Right here, you can see this is the view from the back. So people are looking down. It's kind of close up, but it's really parlor. It's amazing what you can do intimately. On stage. You can do coin tricks, you can do card tricks. They have a camera above right here, right there, and that is designed to shoot down right where this X is on the floor. Right there, if you have a table right there, then what will happen is you'll actually get the view of the hands doing the close-up, which is pretty damn cool. So if you want to, you can do like a super, super intimate, tiny little bit of magic here. I think that I love, also over here, I should show you, so there's another setup right there. I have 2 chairs. Again, magic is furniture and pocket space, right? So one of the interesting things here is because of the theater is actually, the stage is very shallow, but it's very wide. And so this created a number of issues which we had to fix. On this side right here, we have the lighting. This is the lighting and sound. Right here, I have my computer, which will be ready for the show. This will be the monitor, so they can follow everything going on. I have a media star, but I'm not actually using a remote in this particular case. I actually have someone stage managing who's going cue to cue. And this is why it's so important to know the show that you're doing, so that, move for move, right? Not just move for move, but moment to moment, so that you can have a really awesome lighting setup that will enable you to maximize the impact of your magic. So here we are. So this is Liberty Magic. So think about how you would fit your show into a place like this. How would you make the angles on your tricks work? How could you film 90 minutes and entertain this crowd right here? Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special Magic on the Go interview. I'm here in Pittsburgh, performing right now at a place called Liberty Magic, and I have had the honor of working with one of the best backstage staff crew, executive crew I've ever worked with. Liberty Magic. Well, we're going to hear from the people who know exactly what their whole mission plan is. A number of conversations that I've had with people who work here and have enlightened me, let's put it that way. And I thought it might be good for anyone who is looking to put together an act or even a show, because there's a big difference between the two. You're going to get some real choice bits of advice here. And the great thing is, it doesn't come from a magician. It comes from someone who knows theater, someone who knows direction, someone who's been a director herself and actually works with Liberty Magic. So I'd like to introduce you right now to Zoe Ruth. Hello.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for doing this. Is that a stage name, by the way? Is that Zoe Ruth something, or is Ruth actually your last name?
It's my middle name.
It's your middle name. Okay. Well, you're just keeping the last name private, just for...
Well, it's Sisson Silberblatt, so it's just quite a mouthful.
Oh my God!
Figured I'd spare
if you have a lisp, it's going to be really.
Yeah.
Okay, right, good. Well, Zoe Ruth, thanks for that. Zoe, why don't you tell everybody exactly your position here and what it is that you do?
Yeah, so I'm venue manager here at Liberty Magic. I wear a lot of hats. So I work full-time for the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust,
right.
Which is our kind of umbrella organization. But I'm specifically focused on Liberty Magic, so I help book the seasons. I liaise with the artists ahead of all their bookings, and then I help produce the show. I'm often in the back running cues and helping with magical moments. I introduce the show each night. I kind of play role as host on show evenings, and I get to know our guests. We've built a really great community of magic lovers here in Pittsburgh, and I get to hang out with them every night.
When did you start working here at Liberty?
I first started when we opened in February of 2019. So I was with Liberty Magic first part-time, and then I took over the full-time position about 6 months later. Really getting on a roll, and then of course the pandemic hit. We did
what pandemic? Oh yeah, because I was supposed to work here as well,
yeah.
And that got canned like year after year after year, and finally we're here doing it. Yeah. When did you come back to start working again after the pandemic kind of slowed down a little bit?
I did do a virtual show for called Liberty Magic at Home, which is available if you guys want to watch it. It is on YouTube and on the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust Facebook.
Liberty Magic at Home. That's great. We should check that out. See how you guys did the whole digital thing, because that was always such a mystery to me.
It was, for sure. But magicians, I feel like, were particularly well equipped in the way they thought about problem solving to move their art online. So that was really cool to watch. So then we reopened for live shows in October of 2021. So we've been back up and rolling for a little over a year now for live shows.
And did you, before you started working here at Liberty Magic, it's a beautiful venue. It holds about how many people?
Our main stage holds 66.
66 people. And it's the most beautifully appointed, and the decor is fantastic. The design is really cool. And the idea behind it, which we'll get to in a minute, is a little different to any other magic venue I think that I've ever been to. But before you started working here, had you had any experience working with magicians before?
No, really not any at all.
And did anything prepare you for that experience?
Well, so I do have a lot of experience working in the circus arts. So there's kind of a similar mentality of using spectacle in an evening of entertainment when you're thinking of, things like flying trapeze and aerial dance and clown. So that feels more related to the world of magic than just specifically traditional theater. Yeah, no, it's a different world.
It's a different world, and we're going to get into the differences. And I think we're not going to mention names here. We're going to keep things relatively anonymous. But we will find out some of the pros and cons and some of the experiences I think that Zoe's experienced working with various magicians. But one of the things that makes this venue amazing and different is that, first of all, you buy a season ticket like you would to any other theater. And the idea being that in that season, you're going to see 6 different one-person shows. Not just an act, but an actual one-person show. And each show up to 90 minutes. Right?
Yeah, 70 to 90 minutes. So it is a full evening show that we look to.
It's a full evening show. It's not just coming on and doing trick for 20 minutes and calling it a day. So this is one of the things that makes it special. It really, Liberty Magic treats magic as an art form. It elevates, one of its mission statements is, right, to elevate the art of magic. And I think they're doing an amazing job. And in the process, kind of pushing magicians to elevate themselves and to maybe move into areas they didn't think of before. I've already done a one-man show, so for me, it was an ideal fit for me to come in and do. My problem is getting it into 90 minutes. But that was fine. When you started booking magicians, when you started looking at magicians, how did you find the landscape as far as magicians out there who had 90-minute shows that they could do?
That's a great question. Well, I should mention, so Liberty Magic was founded by Pittsburgh Cultural Trust artistic producer Scott Schiller, vice president of artistic planning. He's been magic fan forever. And I think shows like yours, shows like Dennis Watkins' show, those kind of gave him this idea to really take that full evening model and run with it. So there were, a small handful of shows that served as inspiration for the venue itself, for the model of the venue itself. And then after that, it started to become a head scratcher. And Scott, like me, comes from a background mostly of traditional theater. And so to kind of come to terms with the fact that the magic world is set up differently. It is set up for expertly fine-tuned 20-minute shows.
Right. Gigs. It's set up for gigs, really, isn't
exactly.
it? Yeah.
The gig industry. Yeah. And so it was the first year, for sure, we learned a lot because a lot of it was kind of commissioning an artist's first 90-minute show and realizing how different of a format 90 minutes.
It's a lot of material. I mean, even if you're storytelling, I think in my show, I've got 45, 50 different tricks, and I'm still monologuing through half of it. So it's a lot of material for people to do. It's definitely an Olympic thing, to go out there for 90 minutes nonstop and perform, especially if you're used to doing 15 to 20 minutes.
For sure.
And to create some kind of arc and some kind of story or some kind of hook that brings people coming in. So when people were coming to you, and first of all, that's really commendable that at times you were literally commissioning a new show and giving people who had never done something like this a chance. On the whole, was it a successful idea, or did you find very quickly that it needed a lot more, that most magicians needed a lot more work in order to kind of create that 90-minute format?
I would say both and. Our first year we sold out almost every single show.
Right.
So that's a big nod towards, we did it right, we did it successfully. Right. But some of the shows did not feel, and still, I think it takes so much to not only have mastery over the skill of magic, the multitasking that takes, but then to also add this other layer of weaving in a beginning, middle, and end, an overarching theme that can actually keep your audience engaged in a deeper way for that amount of time.
Let them feel like they've been on a theatrical journey, right? And I think this is what I love about what you're doing here, because having seen you work and talked to you about all these things, it's you're coming to this not from the world of magic. So to you, this is also great, is that it's not about the tricks, guys. We always think that magic, and girls, we always think that magic is about the magic tricks, and it's really not. It's about the whole, especially a show like this. And we always talk in an act how, you've got your opening trick, your middle, and then your big finale. And most of the time in an act, nothing really connects, or has to connect. Maybe the theme is you're a magician, or maybe you do tricks with clocks, but that's it. Here, when we've been talking about this hook, you were talking about kind of how you would kind of push some of the magicians to find something within themselves.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for a lot of shows that, similar to yours, it becomes a little autobiographical. It becomes, and of course, write what you know, right? What inspires you particularly about this trick? How did you get there? But not all the shows are like that. I mean, think of like Guy Hollingworth's show. That whole show was kind of about somebody else, a historical figure.
And it was fantastic, right?
Yeah, reads like a play. We talk about him all the time.
Every other comment is when Guy was here, and I'm beginning to think I'm going to change my name and become a barrister. But anyway, but when Guy was here, it was fantastic. Guy had this. Anyway.
And then other shows are not necessarily as personal story driven, but more conceptual. The first that comes to mind is John Ty's show Road Signs, which is very immersive and really truly throws the audience into a world that they were not expecting when they bought a ticket to a magic show.
This is what I love. And we should explain, John has been doing magic for how not that long, right? Like maybe I think 5 years. like that?
Yeah, Liberty Magic kind of opened up right at the time that John quit his day job and began
Decided
magic full time. Yeah.
So John approaches it not from someone who's been studying tricks forever, but someone who's looking at the theatrical experience. In fact, this is the show which has got the mound of dirt in the middle of the floor when people come in?
Yes, it is.
And so immediately you're kind of like, what is this?
Yeah.
And it's not a rice bowls, right? It's nothing like that. It's something even deeper. And I love that. And so I guess the first thing to look at then, if you're designing a show, is what's your theme. So give us an idea of some of the themes that you've seen that have worked, and maybe some of those that you've seen in submitted tapes that maybe weren't quite so strong.
That's a good question.
And do you think it has to be strong? Do you think, or maybe it's just even a little something that hooks us back to the beginning that makes you feel like it's a whole?
Yeah, for sure.
Necessary.
And again, because we are set up as a subscription season,
Right.
it's really great to have one show like yours that is very narrative driven, and then another show like Henry Evans that is very much, let's do a bunch of card magic.
Trick. Yeah.
So to find that texture within the season is really great.
Yes.
Now, I will mention Henry Evans is so incredibly skillful that he is, to me, one of the few people that can pull off 90 minutes of let's just do card tricks.
90 minutes of card tricks.
Right.
Let's all make sure we see Henry whenever he's in town so you can see how he does it. I remember there was a guy called Billy O'Connor who used to tour the world back in the vaudeville days. He had a 12-minute act. It was a 12-minute card act. And that, at that time, was considered to be extreme, right? To go on and do card tricks for 12 minutes. And that was all he ever did. It was called Billy O'Connor and his 52 assistants. And on Magic on the Go, we actually have a bunch of his material. But the idea of doing 90 minutes, I think half of my show is card tricks. But even that has narrative kind of spaced out between it. So that's super impressive. But you feel, so let's go back to the themes so that our members can understand what we're talking about when we say a theme or a hook, something that
for sure.
gets under the skin.
Let me talk a little bit about Mr. Masato's show, which was created for Liberty Magic, was really his first endeavor into the world of writing a play in the I said play already. Writing a magic show in the way
that's how she thinks. It's great.
Right. Writing a magic show in the way that you would write a play. And it was a lot of us working together to say, what story are we telling your audience in this moment? Why should we care? And to me, a magic trick is like, it's a tool. It's like a hammer, right? I can walk around with a hammer for 90 minutes and I'm going to get exhausted of holding that hammer. But once I start swinging that hammer into a nail, I'm building something, right? And if you're not swinging that hammer, if you're not using that magic trick as a tool, you're just carrying it around. It's going to be exhausting. You're going to get tired of it. But if you're using it to open your audience up, make them a little bit more vulnerable and receptive, you have this unique opportunity to get your ideas so much deeper emotionally into them. Right? And Masato has really run with that idea, and his show in response is super touching. It's very personal. Beautiful. It's very inspiring. And he's able to tell the messages that he's learned in his life in this very unique and theatrical way.
Yeah. And we're not just talking about, here's a trick someone taught me and then they died, so I'm doing it as a tribute, although that's half of my show. It's a theme. It's a really brilliant analogy, the idea of swinging a hammer. Magic is a tool, and so you do have to ask yourself, why are you doing it? Why are you presenting it? And your answer could be just to entertain the audience. The worst thing that you want to say really is because I can, or because I want to show off my skill. You want to share something. You want to figure out what's the reaction you want to get from your audience, right? And I know that in my show there are certain pieces that really are designed to elicit an emotional response. I have a card stab that's very angry at one point. I don't think anyone's ever presented a card trick as angrily as I present this particular card trick. And it pushes it going there, and it gets a shocked reaction from the audience. But the point is, like, that trick carries the theme of emotional frustration. That's what I'm trying to sell, not just the trick. And at the end, when the trick actually succeeds, it's even more amazing. But it's, what are you trying to, in your show, what are you trying to get your audience to feel, right? What is the journey that you're going to take them on? And if you can just in a few lines at the beginning of your show, I feel kind of set that path, whatever your hero's journey is going to be, so people understand where you're going, and then call back to it a couple of times throughout the show, and then finish by calling back fully to that moment. Or you already will have some kind of thing that feels like a cohesive cohesive combination, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but then again, you said one of the things you said is sometimes, which is very interesting, that there are shows that you love which are very narrative driven, but the audiences sometimes just will go for trick, 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 and you think that's because
If they're good enough.
If they're good enough, if they're good enough, like Henry.
I also think what Henry does really wonderfully is he has this persona when he's on stage, and honestly when he's not on stage too, but he is just so inviting and so welcoming, and the character that he brings to the stage fills out that need for something deeper, something more than just trick in its own way, and adds, like I mentioned, that much needed texture and variety in the context of a greater season.
Right, okay. So all these people are coming to you and they're saying, oh, I want to do my show. And I know this from somebody else I know who was putting on kind of like late night long shows versus acts, and they were asking magicians to send in their videos, and magicians would be like, I got enough material, or they would say, here's a bunch of videos of me doing a ton of different tricks, but there's no particular routine. Or did you find that was a problem? Were you getting stuff submitted, or were you going after
for sure.
acts?
No, yeah. I mean, so we do have a way for anybody to submit for booking.
Check this out, guys.
Yeah, it's trustarts.org/bookmymagic.
I'll put that under the screen so you can see.
Yeah, and kind of, the gold standard of that is submit a video format of your 70 to 90 minute show.
Right.
Now, I understandably, not a lot of magicians have that ready to go.
Right.
So a lot of what we get through there are promo reels, which I think tell very little about what a performer is actually going to be able to bring.
That's just editing and music, isn't it?
Right.
We all know that. Bookers
right.
know that. Yeah.
I might get a great sense if I want to ask you for the name of who edited your video. But
what was that song? Hi, we're not going to book you, but that song, what was that?
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it really is about how do you show, and again, also, I'm not that interested in your magician level skill.
Okay.
Right? Because you could be doing incredibly simple tricks, and yet if you are using them properly, or I shouldn't say properly, there are a million different proper ways to use a trick, but if you are
I know what you mean.
using them theatrically, that's gonna sink deep for me.
So this is something to learn, again, something to think about. This is coming from someone who hasn't been in the world of magic that long, and this is something Zoe has picked up very quickly. It's not about the skill level of the trick that you're doing, it's about the effect it creates on the audience. And that, I mean, you could do an entire show of self-working tricks, and it could be way more powerful than going out and doing 15 Pharaoh shuffles to produce 4 aces, right? So it's something to think about here. It's about the show, it's about the cohesiveness and the theme, and again, what you want, the effect that you want to have on people. Have you noticed as you get all these tapes in, right, and you see these performers, and I think this is really important, similarities between like the same kind of material that's presented all the time? A lot of magicians will, I mean, there's millions of tricks. On Magic on the Go we have over 800, but magicians have a tendency to do the same 10 or 12, and I think it's really important, and I talk about this a lot, it's important to be original as much as you can, and to present stuff that people aren't doing. What are the more common effects that everyone seems to do in their show? And pay attention to this, and then cut these out of your act immediately if this is what you do. Okay, we actually haven't talked about this ahead of time, so I have no idea what she's going to say. I'm going to say cards to pocket.
Well, yeah. Well, I'll start by saying it might not be necessary to cut something out completely.
Okay.
But to reimagine it completely,
Brilliant.
right? Like,
yeah, brilliant. Okay.
One thing we saw kind of over and over and over again was floating table, which is a fun effect if it's the first time you've ever seen it. But if you're a subscriber to Liberty Magic and you're seeing it for the 3rd time, you start to think to yourself, okay, it's a gimmicked table, now what?
As soon as you see the table, you know what's coming. And also that's something, yes, the subscribers here are seeing 6 shows back to back, for the price of 5, by the way. But it's a bit like 6-card repeat. You pay for 5, but you get 6. But they're seeing the same tricks over and over again. Think about when you go do a gig, how many magicians have been at various parties over the years. You know, if you want to really stand out, you want to be original, I would recommend, if you're going to do the floating table, if you set fire to it, what's amazing is you've got this floating balsa wood table, and it'll be the last time you ever do it. So there you go. So it's an amazing finale. Don't do that and burn your house down. But I'm just saying, that's the point. Set fire to it. Get rid of it. Break it. All right. No offense to Los Under. It's a great trick, but everyone does it. Although you have seen people like Nathan Fahn, people like that, do an incredible, use it in a different way.
That's why I bring that up first, because I was just about ready to say absolutely no more floating tables are allowed on the Liberty Magic stage. And then I saw Nathan Fahn's iteration of the floating table, which tells just a really beautiful, touching story. And it's inspired by the movie Up, and it's set to that soundtrack, and it fuses together the gypsy string, I think is the traditional name of that trick.
The Tony Clark trick, where it's tied to a balloon that pulls it up.
It's just a really new presentation of it. And yes, sure, I get that it is and yet it's used to like sink the theme of that moment deeper. into
it's not
his
just
audience.
About the table, it's about the story, and it's about the levitation. We're not saying that everybody has to go out and go, listen, back in 1922 we're not saying that. We're just saying that it's a different way of approaching a trick, or maybe blending a couple of pieces together, right, to create a thing. That I did a show last year called Mr. Valentine Blows Your Mind, and I had all these suspension tricks where you touch a wand and it sticks to your fingers, or a knife, and the rice jar suspension, and another one where a jar's full of smoke. And combining them, you may have seen one or two of those if done individually, but we combined them into this theme of, what if you let go of an apple and it didn't drop? Mm-hmm. What if you could control gravity and this piece of music, and we fused them together, and it created a whole effect that anything you touched could defy gravity. And I think that's something to think about. How can you combine something? If you don't want to get rid of something, how can you combine it?
Another example of that. So another thing I would say that is potentially overdone is PK touch.
Okay.
We see a lot of that. But our December residency, who was just here, Randy Shine, he fuses PK touch with, and I don't know all of the magic terminology, my friends. I'm still learning.
That's all right. We'll help you.
But the idea is that this person he's never touched, cards have traveled into their pocket with every phantom touch. And so it's
so he's just using
next
it as a
level.
Yeah, that's really great. Don't nick that. That's Randy's.
Yeah. So
I might nick it, but don't you nick it.
So some of these like overdone or traditional pieces of magic, how can they become a vehicle for the next effect? Which I think can work really well.
That's amazing. So we've seen, we've talked about the floating table, which obviously was the first thing that came to mind. They're kind of reminiscent of the old days when everyone was doing the egg bag, and they used to have backstage this sign that said no egg bags. We're now at no floating tables, and PK touches. That's surprising. I'm surprised that's really interesting. What other effects stand out to you?
I'd have to think. I mean, I've seen a million iterations of Ambitious Card, but I mean, of course, that's a classic, and I think that's another one that it is all about presentation, and there's a million ways to do that. Cups and balls and chop cup, again, is really common, but can still be done really beaubeautifly and in a really fun way. Cue the magic, the cue card trick.
Yes, right, okay.
That's done pretty frequently.
How about the bandana trick? Is that done a lot?
Yes. Especially, are you talking about the
banana bandana?
Yes.
See, this is a lot of magic is
done quite a bit.
The what we call cookie cutter comedy in a box kind of tricks. You want to kind of stay away from those if you can. The cue cards is a similar thing. You're really just going through. It's scripted for you. It's right here, and you get the card. And the bandana trick, I mean, that's so old now that people don't even know what a bandana. I mean, do you really use the term bandana anymore? So it's kind of, you want to try and avoid those things, and this is great. Make a note, everybody. Banana bandana. Let's just not, please.
Or do it with some self-awareness, right? I mean, there's always a way to make fun of yourself.
I mean, I've seen the new versions of it. I remember it started out on, it was an LP. So you got a record. I think when Copperfield first did it, it was a record. And then, so think about that. David did that back in the early 80s, I imagine, late 70s, early 80s. And then it became a cassette tape, and then it was a CD, and now it's Siri on your phone. Mm-hmm. But it's the same thing. It's the same thing. You're given instructions on how to do a trick, and it messes up. Maybe there's a new version of that out there somewhere that doesn't involve a banana or a bandana, and that would be great. And then you can kind of take the idea of that presentation and twist it and say, okay, well, here's how I learned a magic trick, but it's a different trick, you know, and at least, but that's, so let's not be lazy with the comedy stuff that we do. Let's not do cookie cutter stuff where it's all written out for us. Let's try and find that thing that even if you buy it, that you make it more yours and to fit your personality. All right, so bandana, banana.
Rubik's Cubes are becoming very common.
I'm sorry, did you say, I fell asleep at that moment, just when you said Rubik's Cubes. That was crazy. I fell asleep and I solved one. Because there's like 22 quintuple million variations and yes.
Yeah.
So here's the thing with Rubik's Cubes that I don't understand. Back in the 20s and before then, there was magicians were always doing tricks with dice. They were obsessed with these giant dice wherever you go, right? And you had the sliding dice box, you had dice vanishes and appears in a hat, or it changes into a bouquet of flowers. In some ways, Rubik's Cubes give that magic, that being a prop that's out there now, that gives everyone the opportunity to kind of go back, look at all those dice tricks and reimagine them as Rubik's tricks. But they're not. We're still doing, I'm going to solve it. And yes, it's powerful. I've seen great variations on that. It is getting a little bit to the point where when someone pulls out a Rubik's, you're getting a bit like, now that just might be because we see a lot of magic. I mean, certainly I've noticed the great question that you ask audiences when they come in is how many people are seeing magic for the first time? And that's amazing how many people say they're seeing it for the first time.
Yeah.
In which case, any trick you do for them well done is going to be great for them, right? So any Rubik's Cube trick is going to be great. But the question is, why are you doing a Rubik's Cube trick to begin with? How does that fit into your show? So you've got to think about these things, right? Rubik's Cube in a bottle is a great trick, and that's just something that's a little different. I like that because it's not about solving the cube.
Right.
Although a friend of mine is about to put something out where you put the cube in the bottle and then you solve it. So there's just like a million versions.
That sounds great.
But okay, that's really good. Rubik's Cube, and give me one more.
One more. We were talking about confabulation the other day.
Yes.
Yeah. But again, I mean, that's similar to like something like Ambitious Card. There's so many ways to present that I think it could be new and fresh. Yeah, I don't know. It's always been so interesting to me in the world of magic, especially because so many magic shows use so much comedy.
Yeah.
There's so much crossover with stand-up comedy and magic show. In the stand-up comedy world, you would never say a joke that someone else wrote.
Right.
And yet in the magic world, it is standard.
Which brings us, yes.
I don't know.
So what you're noticing is it's not the tricks, it's a lot of the lines are the same.
Yeah, I mean, I was brought up not to plagiarize, and I know it's different. It's not, it is different, but
it
also,
shouldn't be though.
Write
I mean,
your
it really
own
shouldn't
jokes.
be. Yeah, no, they don't. So this brings us to the world of stock lines, everybody.
Yeah.
A stock line is the word stock line is an excuse to do somebody else's material. Right? It's like, well, it's a stock line. Everybody does it. I remember years ago, I was hosting the Magic Castle Awards show, and I was introducing Zany Blaney, who was a very tall Texan magician. A little bit later in the show, I was going to introduce him. And I did this bit where I pulled the guy up from the audience, and I did every possible stock, in order to make a point, I did every stock line on him and treated him kind of the same way, say, like a harsh, older Divernon would treat someone, where they're kind of like, oh, what are you, an idiot? Hold your hands out. No, hey, stupid, look at this. Okay, hold on, the clean one. We'll do it. Oh, come stand over here, on the trap door. Did all the lines. And at the end, the guy from the audience punches me out. When we set this up, he was a friend of mine who was a wrestler. And then we get up and take a bow, and we call it magic in the classic manner. And somebody mentioned to me as I was backstage, they said, do you realize that most of the lines that you use were all Walter's lines? Walter Blaney's lines. Those were original with him back in the...
And now it's time for another edition of Magic in the Classical Style.
Okay, I need somebody from the audience. That guy over there. You a magician? Come up on stage, sir. I'm going to do a trick with you. Come, we're going to do magic in the classical style. Give him a big round of applause. We need a sucker here on the stage. It's a nice shirt. Who shot the couch? Who shot the... Okay, come on up on stage. There you go. Lovely to see you. Come and stand right here on the trap door. We're going to do a trick, see? Right there on the trap door, right under the sandbag. That's good. All right. What's your name? Nobody gives a shit. All right. Hold your hand up for me. There you go. No, the clean one. The clean one. Show it. No, give me the other one. That's better. You were right. You were right. Okay, so here's the idea. It's a trick here with 3 balls, 2 more than you got, and I'm going to take these 2. Now look, see? You got to watch, right? You got to watch. 2 balls go in the hand. This one goes in my pocket. How many balls do I have in my hand? 2 balls. 3. You see, because you're not watching. You got to watch, right? Okay, so look, see? I'm going to put 2 balls in the hand. These go in here. 3rd ball goes in the pocket. How many balls do I have in my hand? 2. No, I got 3. What are you, an idiot? Ugh.
And that was another edition of Magic in the Classical Style.
It's amazing. I was watching Arnold the Beard do the egg bag on a British Pathé, which is this great black and white news site, black and white film. And he's literally doing the "That's how I got it" line. You know, I'll take that back. Thank you. That's how I got it, which every magician does. There's a thing. So this is fascinating. So you're noticing in the short amount of time that you've been here in Magic, the use of stock lines, and
Yes.
really think about this. I think the easiest thing to do is to look at all the stock lines in your show, and then think about what is a variation of that you can change to make your own. I'll give you an example. So there's a trick where there's a gag where you hold up a watch as if you've stolen it, right? So most people will go, is this your watch? Oh no, it's mine. That's the one that everybody does, right? So I love the idea of doing the watch gag, but I didn't want to do the same punchline. So I changed it to, I hold up the watch, everyone reacts, I hold it, and then I'm like, oh, it's not his, I'm just showing it to him. And I put it away. And that's it. And it's different enough where I can sleep at night.
Oh, for sure.
And so look at the stock lines that you do, because what will end up happening is when you're sharing the bill with another magician, and this happened, I'm not going to say which tour of the Illusionists, but it wasn't one that I was on, but I was aware of these 2 magicians who would argue every show about who got to do what stock line. And if you're in that situation, then you're in trouble, right? You shouldn't never have to debate who's going to do stand on the trap door, who's got the clean hand, I'm going to read your mind, are you happy with the mind you pick?
Well, and I think the example that you bring up from your show, the watch bit, because you wrote your own version of it, it inherently is going to support the character that you are on stage way better than anything someone else wrote for some different show.
Are you hearing that? This is from the viewpoint of a writer and director.
Like even if your writing is not as funny or topical or whatever as the stock line you started from, it is always going to represent you and your character more deeply, and in that way enhance your show as a whole better. Instead of just that one moment, it is about moving from how do I make this moment work to how do I make this 90-minute journey work.
Right. That's brilliant. So think about that. It comes from you, from your persona, from your personality, from your language skills, right? There's a perfect example, which I learned recently. And I used to there's a guy called Terry Seabrook. He's dead now. God rest him. He was an amazing comedy magician back in the day. And he did this trick with a cigarette where you put it out in a coat, back in the day where you could smoke on stage, and he would stub it out in somebody's coat. And he sold the routine with all the lines and all the gags. And I learned the routine. I bought it. I learned it, and I used to do it back in England, word for word, gag for gag. But those gags never came from me. And it wasn't until recently when I was watching an old bit of footage of him on YouTube, and I saw him do the lines and saw his delivery of those lines. I'm like, oh, that's the timing on that joke. That's why he said that. And none of that could be conveyed in the pamphlet that you bought. And I've done a bit on comedy on Magic on the Go too, you guys, where I'm talking about kind of like understanding where the humor comes from. It's so important. And if you're doing someone else's joke, you won't understand where it comes from, you know. And so, and even if you do, it might not even sound like it's you. Suddenly you're saying something that you would never say up until that point. And these are really important things. So it's good to protect yourself in that way, just to rewrite and be original. And from that can come something else, maybe even better than the original line.
Nice little cliffhanger for you. Wasn't she great? Zoe has amazing things to say in the next episode as well.
She's so freaking smart. Like, I will go in one direction and then she just brings it back to what really matters, like the core of what we all magicians and the rest of us need to do to make our work better. So thank you, Zoe. Come back and see us next week for part 2. I should say part 3 and never have a part 2, just to drive people nuts. So they're like, oh, where's part 2? I haven't heard part 2. Because you know what I did once? I put out a lecture for magicians. It was called the Magic Castle Lecture Part 1. And I did actually intend to put out part 2, but instead what ended up being the products in part 2 just kind of became their own separate projects. And so part 2 never came out. And it drives collectors crazy because they only have part 1 and there will only ever be part 1. Sorry, guys, but it just gives me a kind of twisted joy. Anyway, come back next week for another episode of Magicians Only. Don't forget, Magicians Only is sponsored by what? What was that? I can't hear you. Let me hear you say that louder. That's right. Magic on the Go, the online encyclopedia of magic, where we not only teach you the tricks, we don't only teach you how to do the tricks, but we teach you how to do the tricks. And you're learning from someone who does it on a daily basis. Like, we walk the walk and we talk the talk. So much love to everybody, and I will see you on the inside.